Well, welcome to another episode of today's Conversations on Leadership, powered by Life University. I'm your host, Dr. Gilles LaMarche. And as you know, our podcast usually addresses leading teams or leading in the workplace. But today we're going to address reasons and strategies to lead yourself. And I can tell you, I have a friend and colleague on with me today who is the perfect guest to actually address that. I'm going to read a little section that I picked out of his bio, or a couple little sections I picked out of his bio. And this one says, for as long as he can remember, Dr. Z has been burdened with the yearning desire to live a life of meaning. Growing up in the outskirts of Detroit, Michigan, he often wondered how a truck driver's kid could do great things with his life without resources and influential people to support him. Plagued by addiction, depression, gut disorders, skin conditions, and utter hopelessness, Dr. Z's life was radically transformed in 2003 when he became a Christian. Immediately recognizing that healthy living was a spiritual act of worship, he started to change his eating and lifestyle habits one by one. Each health issue that had haunted him in the past from his youth started to fade away. For the first time in his life, he found purpose for living, and started to share his story and research with everyone around him. And now, for over a decade, Dr. Z has been formally trained as a natural healthcare provider, chiropractor, and researcher with the intent to educate, inspire, challenge people to live their God-given potential. He was on the esteemed research track while earning his Doctor of Chiropractic degree here at Life University. Since 2016, he's been studying aromatherapy at the Atlantic Institute of Aromatherapy, and his vehicles of communicating abundant life truths are his writings, his research, and speaking engagements. It is such a pleasure to welcome to today's Conversations on Leadership my friend, Dr. Eric Zielinski. Eric, thanks for joining me today. Such a pleasure to have you with me.
Oh, brother, it is my privilege and it's an honor. And I'm just so excited to see what we'll uncover, because this is totally unscripted and it's going to be a beautiful conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, as you heard me say, we usually talk about how people are leading their organizations, and giving credit to my assistant when she suggested you. And of course, you and I are good friends. I was like, oh my gosh, I had not thought about it. And then I realized you had so much that you could share, from how you choose to lead your life, how to choose to lead your life as a friend, a father, a husband, a business owner who had built a huge online following. You have such a big audience of people that watch you, and I know you. So I know that you are a man of honesty and of highest integrity, and the life that you live is the life that you say you live. Having even been to your home and having hung out with your wife and children, run a number of 5Ks with you and your children, you're a blessing. So share with our audience, if you would, how does Eric choose to lead his life, and why? In all those parameters.
Yeah, it comes down to the fact that when I had my spiritual epiphany in 2003, I instantly became accountable to God for everything, which was the most freeing, liberating thing that ever happened to me. Because before that, I was accountable to parents. I was accountable to people around me. I was accountable to organizations. I was accountable to whatever institution that I was submitted to. And every one of those institutions, every one of those people were corrupt at one point, or let me down at one point, or abused me at one point, or hurt me at one point. And it really caused me to be at a place where I felt like I needed to buck the system and rebel. And my version of rebelling ended up driving me into significant deep depression and suicide ideation, where I ended up coping through the mental, emotional, even physical anguish, because my body was in such physical pain, through narcotics and alcoholism, even smoking cigarettes, pornography, just anything to give me that dopamine rush to get me through another minute. And it was this utter rebellion that caused me ultimate despair. And when I accepted Christ, it was not a religious thing. It wasn't at a church. It was actually at my friend's house, who is now a mentor of mine, who's 78 years old, who's healthier than anyone I still know at his age, running, circles around me, can still bench press 250 pounds. And I saw someone who lived a life of integrity. And when he showed me a way that I didn't think existed, quite frankly, I didn't know it was possible. I never thought someone could live an abundant life in every area of life. And abundance is relative. I understand that. But what does abundance mean to you? What does abundance mean to me? And abundance, in my opinion, at this point in my life, I'm 42 years old. It's about balance in all the areas that make up who we are. There's a spiritual area of our life, a physical, a mental, emotional. There's a financial area. There's a social and an occupational, like what do you do for a living? What's your career? What's your ministry? And I always yearned for peace and prosperity and abundance in all those areas. And I saw someone who was as close as I ever met anyone who lived that way. And at the core was this health component. And he said to me, Eric, your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. You need to take care of it because it will really fuel and fund you. It will be a vehicle for all the other things that you want. And I never thought about that this earth suit will weigh us down because it's impossible. It's impossible to have to live your best. It's impossible to be sick in bed and then fulfill a ministry that you're going to be interacting with people. It's impossible to reach millions of people and not have any money to your name. Like it's, when you start looking at all the different areas of life. So to kind of circle back to your question, what makes me tick is this accountability to God and God alone as a gift of my life. When he gave my gift to me, I want to do my best in every area.
So that's your overarching, that was your reason.
Yes.
So now if you could speak, so how do you maintain it? How do you get to lead your life that way now? And what are some of the strategies or tactics that you utilize to make sure that you continue to live from that spiritual umbrella, if you like?
So I once heard a pastor say, if you don't want to look over your shoulder all the time or look in the rearview mirror for a police officer to pull you over, drive under the speed limit. When you live a life of integrity, when you live your best life, you don't need to look behind you. You don't need to worry about getting audited by the IRS if you're not cheating on your taxes. You don't need to worry about people looking over your shoulder if you're late at night looking at something illicit on the computer. You don't need to worry about how I'm interacting with women at a party if my wife's around because I might be doing something wrong. So it's this overarching accountability that I really believe I have a loving God who loves me, that has given me wonderful wisdom and truth in his word in the Bible. And I follow the book of Proverbs as an anthem and as a guide to my life and how to live in every area in all the words of the Bible. And I learned how to live. And what I'm saying is I'm accountable to one and one only. And if we believe that God is all knowing, all powerful, omniscient, omnipresent everywhere. So when I go to the store, I'm not even tempted to go buy something that could be, quote, unhealthy for me or be something destructive to me. And it's a different mentality than, oh, I'm a child wanting to get something from Santa. And am I being a good boy or bad boy? My motive is love. My motive is service. My motive is appreciation. It's like, wow, look what God did for me. Of course, I'm going to live my best for him. Oswald Chambers wrote my utmost for his highest. And that man of God over a century and a half ago explained about how we live, again, accountable to God alone. So that right there takes away temptation. That takes away any desire that I might have to quote, cheat on a diet or to cheat on my wife or to cheat on my taxes. And if it's rooted in acts of love, not from punitive, that's the difference. I don't do these things because I feel I'm going to get on God's naughty list and go to hell. And I think that's the difference between people who are religious, who have that punitive God in their life, or someone like me. I have an all-loving God who wants my best. And so that really has motivated me to live and, quite frankly, supporting myself by having people that support me, like people like you, my wife, and others. Like I'm very selective with who's in my inner circle. So people that challenge me to be my best. And when I and when I launched into this online space several years ago, I quickly realized I'm actually accountable to the world. And I have a funny story about that. Again, it's ultimately about accountability. I remember at one church several years ago, I was asked to guest teach Bible study because the Bible study teacher was on leave, and I was teaching. I was teaching about health and things that we do. And they're like, "Hey, we'd love for you to explain your studies," because I was actually a student at Life University at the time. And so they knew I was a budding health influencer, a budding doctor, and I was a student at the time. So I just explained, and it was a wonderful Bible study. But here's a funny thing: they all knew who I was. A couple of weeks later, I took my kids to McDonald's. Well, why would you take your kids to McDonald's? Well, I was broke and I had no money, like a lot of college students do. And my kids like to play at the McDonald's play area. And that was what we did. I mean, that was one of the things that we did. And I would scrounge up a couple bucks. I'd get them their dollar little, Happy Meal toy. And that's what I would do. The kids like to play inside, and especially during the winter days or the cold days, whatever. So here I am in line at McDonald's, gonna buy my kids a Happy Meal toy because they're collecting them. And walks in the Sunday school's teacher, his wife. And she looked at me. She's like, "Hey, Eric, how you doing? Wouldn't expect you to come in here." And that moment, that instant judgment was there. Like, here you are, you hypocrite, telling people how you to live and how to be healthy, and you're in line for McDonald's. And then I fumbled over my words. "Oh, no, I'm just buying the Happy Meal toy." And it was at that moment I realized the whole world I'm accountable to, right? And so the more that I've shared my life online, the more chance meetings I meet people around the world where I speak like, "Hey, Dr. Z, I saw you on this documentary," or "Hey, I saw you on Netflix," or "Hey there." When you live your life in a good way, recognizing that people are looking at you to either judge you, to condemn you, or to aspire to live like you, that really puts an onus on you to live your life to a higher standard than if you didn't have that accountability. So first, I'm accountable to God. Second, I'm accountable to everyone else around me, right? Primarily my kids. And no better people see my life than my kids and my wife. They see my good, my bad, my ugly, all the good stuff. So that's just been my mentality for the last now almost 20 years of living this life as a Christian.
So what type of rituals does Eric have to maintain that level of inspiration? I mean, I'm sure you have a spiritual ritual, you probably have a mental ritual, you have physical rituals. What are some of the rituals that you have taken so that you can maintain yourself as a leader of self, a leader of your family, a leader of your online tribe? Share that. Because I can tell you, I know you've got to have rituals, because I know I've got some very specific rituals that I follow regularly that allow me to be the person that I am every day. What are yours?
Going back to those areas of life I mentioned, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the one thing that I've been challenged to do, especially raising 5 babies and having an online business and doing all the things that we do, is to have rituals in each of those areas. And I think that's really important. And sometimes, because of life, it can be hard to manage all of those different areas of life. And at the core are my spiritual rituals, which include regular prayer, regular fasting, and regular Bible study and inspirational reading. You just blessed me with the collector's kit of Og Mandino's great work, and I'm reading my children The Greatest Salesman in the World as their bedtime story right now at night.
What a great idea.
Right? It's part of a ritual.
I love that book. And the fact that you would take the time to read it to your children, and they're going to gain knowledge and inspiration from that book. So great for you to do that.
Well, it's part of the ritual is feeding myself with inspiration, blessing, good things. Like when you're at our home a couple of weeks ago for our get together, you maybe have noticed or maybe didn't. You didn't see white processed sugar in my house. You didn't see certain things that would be in someone's home. Like that's part of the ritual is making sure that we're doing things that are good for us. And you're never going to see me read anything that isn't going to benefit me. And that's just where, I'm nothing against pleasure reading, nothing against watching like a movie once in a while. But the reality is My time is extremely precious and I'm being stretched so thin again in this stage of life. And many people that know what it's like, we have a 13-year-old, 3 kids in the middle, and then we have a 1-year-old. Like that's a busy life and we love it. I'm thriving it. So if I have 10, 15 minutes to read my kids a nighttime story, I'm going to make sure it's wholesome, it's good. And when you blessed me with that book set, I'm like, you know what? This is going to minister to the kid's spirit. So why not take time? And so that's been the ritual with the spiritual walk. With the physical, regularly exercising. I actually just took my baby out on a little nature hike. We have some wonderful woods and trails behind us. I try to go walking every day. It's something interesting. I found out that of all the most successful billionaire, richest people in the world, they do all kinds of different things, right? Everyone has their own ritual, but by and large, the most common thing is taking walks. And this isn't exercise. This isn't like I'm going to go do, like our 5K that we do. This is outside, enjoying fresh air. I like the forest bathe, get out in the nature, breathe those beautiful volatile organic compounds that we call essential oils. And I love it. And so what did I do? Well, I also want to have the ritual of spending time with my family every day, intimate time. So I brought my baby. And in my life, I'm multitasking. If you notice, this is the trend I'm in. Instead of just reading the Og Mandino book alone, I'm reading with my kids. So I do quality time, I do inspiration, I do uplifting everybody. And hey, I want to go outside, not alone. Sometimes if I need it, but why not spend time with my baby? So I'm in this multitasking era of my life and I want to enjoy every second. And I have little of those things in every area, finances. The Bible talks about, keeping good record of your flock. Like you need to know your ins and your outs. Not that I obsess about my money, but I understand where my money is. And I'll tell you something, I just found some mistakes from business people that I engage with and vendors. And we're talking significant, near 6 figures amount of money that I was shorted recently. That's a lot of money to not have in your business that was owed to you. I keep a good record of these things. I have a constant understanding. Like it's a ritual of me to have financial abundance, to know. Because how many people never balance a checkbook and never look at their ins and outs? And next thing you know, it's like, oh, yeah. Well, sometimes it's hard to collect money if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's, again, little rituals in all of those 7 areas. Emotional health, mental health is so important. Finding something that gives you that mental health reprieve. And for me, I love going into my infrared sauna. It's a great mental health break for me. Helps me with my physical health as well. But boy, there's no better way of de-stressing my life, using essential oils on a regular basis. You see, it's been 19 years, Doc. One by one, we've been building these little rituals. And you were invited to a New Year's get together. That's a ritual for us. Every year we have a New Year's get together with our local natural living family, we call it. And it's something I try to be intentional to give me social abundance, is to be consistent with the people that we love and the people that support us, the people that are in our lives. And it's not a daily ritual, but we try to be very consistent getting together, similar with my wife, going on dates every week. Like that's a ritual that's non-compromisable. We do this, non-negotiable.
Wonderful. I think that our audience is going to be thrilled that we took the time to have this conversation today. And I'd say maybe my last question to you, because we really are running out of time. You run an extremely successful online business. And what do you put out that may be in addition to what you've talked about to that audience, so that you can lead them, other than what you've already shared? Is there anything additional, or you just share your personal life in the way you did, so that those clients live their life that way too, or can choose to live their life that way if they choose to?
The unique thing about us is we have such a massive audience of millions of people every year that read our blogs, articles, and watch our videos, and hang on our memes on Facebook. Like there's just so many different avenues. And so what we've done is we've really have tried to open our lives to say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we live this life. And people look to us, a lot of people do, to like aspire to live healthier, but not just healthier, because we always bring them back to faith. We always bring them back to you can live your best life regardless of what's happened in the past. So what I do online with the people that follow us and buy our programs and stuff is we're just open and honest. And when we make mistakes, we are open about, hey, we made a mistake here. Let's fix it. And so that's it. And it's really no different than how we interact with local people. But I guess the one thing is we have a much better communication with people online, in that it's more consistent, whether it's daily emails or whether it's daily Facebook post or whatever it might be. So that's been something nice. It's very, very consistent. Unlike us, for example, you and I might go 2, 3, 4 weeks without talking. Like, I don't have that in my online world. It's daily. And that's something that's a blessing. And it really is. And so you nurture relationships with people. And I'll encourage people about this, because whether you're a doctor, chiropractic, or whatever business you might run, having that interaction with your customers, your clients, your patients, people that want to follow you, you don't realize you're establishing a real relationship. And I can't tell you how many people I'll meet on the street or at a conference. I've never met them before, but they come up to me and they're like, I feel like I know you. I feel like we're friends. I feel like you're my neighbor. And that is the benefit of this online engagement, is people really, really soak in what you're delivering, and they feel like you're establishing a real life interaction and relationship. And I don't take that for granted. And so there's so much more to be said about that, but I want to encourage people to maybe be a little more intentional about their interaction with their community and to not let that go away, because it's so valuable.
Eric, you shared some fantastic information with our audience today, and I think if I tried to put it in a very short synopsis, you really talk about living a life of faith in a transparent fashion based on love and service for humanity. So thank you for what you do, but more importantly, thank you for being who you are. And thanks for taking the time to share with the audience on today's Conversations on Leadership. It was a true, true, true pleasure to have you with me today. And I'm sure our audience will just love the messages that you shared. So if they want to know more about you, if they want to hang out with you more often, what's the best way? Share your URL. So what's the best way for people to communicate with you?
Yeah. Again, Doc, thank you so much for this. It was a wonderful conversation. It's great to have the opportunity to talk about things I don't get a chance to talk about too much. We have a lot of wonderful resources, everyone, inspiration. We have health resources, all kinds of things to challenge you to live an abundant life. You can check out our website at naturallivingfamily.com and just enjoy.
Thanks, Eric. It's been a blessing to have you with me.